I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's brilliant international editor. Before we move on, Isabel, to another one of these egregious cases where the immigration courts have allowed a really dangerous paedophile to stay here, you know, because he might be persecuted if he goes home. Also, brilliantly this time, he's an alcoholic and he won't be able to get the treatment he needs for his booze problem in a country where they don't have alcohol because it's illegal. So another brilliant decision. But just a few more reflections from you, if you don't mind, on today's spring statement. I mean, it is falling apart at the seams for this woman. The budget, the Office of Budget Responsibility has reduced its forecasts for growth to 1%, which is pretty feeble. It has also predicted that every person in Britain will face financial stagnation until at least 2026. There'll be no growth whatsoever for us personally. And by the way, the OBS also says that the only reason we've even got minor growth is because we've been letting 900,000 migrants in to slightly bolster the economy. The more people you have in a country spending even small amounts of money, the more you'll get a slight rise. It's not a solution in the long term. But anyway, so they've reduced their prediction to less than 1%, and said that we will none of us will get any richer for at least another year. And a new poll by the More in Common company reveals that 53% of the population now believe that Labour lied about its economic plans in order to get into power. And they also believe that Keir's crew always knew that they were not going to keep their promises. 70% aren't buying Labour's constant blaming of the Tories for the current mess, and people are sick and tired of the Gormless government's £22 million financial black hole narrative. The game's up for this woman, isn't it?
Well, I'd like it to be up, and I'd like it to be up right away. I don't think it's up quite yet, unfortunately. I think you and I have talked about this before. I've talked about it on other talk shows. I think that the Prime Minister will probably give her a few more quarters until the UK actually does go into recession. If that happened, then I think her job is in more trouble. But as far as the public are concerned, I think the game was up a long time ago in their view of Rachel Reeves. And the reality is that we are so far down the abyss as a country that only truly radical measures can actually save us, can actually put the economy back on track and turn us into a country that can imagine maybe growing at 3%, 4%, something exciting, forget trying to thrill the voter with the prospect of 1 point something in the dim and distant future. No, the UK needs to do a great deal better than that. And it simply isn't possible when you've got a government that continues to squander money in the way that it does and continues to make it so difficult to employ people or to run small businesses. I didn't agree with everything that Kevin Hoyingrake said, and I certainly didn't agree with you when you said, come back, all is forgiven.
Well, it's just a kind of turn of phrase,
Yeah, I haven't forgiven.
Well, I'll have the Tories over this lot, if you know what I mean. That's all I meant.
Yeah, I think many of our listeners would prefer none of the above.
Yeah, well, okay. Point taken.
But basically, we need radical measures. And this, you're absolutely right to focus in, to home in on this welfare bill. And let's just be really plain about what we're talking about here. When they talk about welfare cuts, what they're really talking about is the bill not rising at quite such a catastrophic rate as it was going to. It's a bit like inflation. Money is still, the cost of everything is still going up. It's just not going up quite such a fast rate. We're still talking about an extra 29 billion on the cost of the welfare state over the next few years. We are going down the pan, and we're going down the pan really fast, and no amount of gaslighting from this Chancellor can change that. People feel it, they see it. I don't know anyone on any income bracket who currently feels better off.
Well, socialists and the Labour Party, or Labour governments, always believe in the magic money tree. And what they don't want to do constitutionally is, like, emotionally, they hate to cut benefits. They hate to cut welfare. That's what they like to do. They like to take money from people like you and me, hard-working taxpayers, and give it to people who don't work, and then give pay rises to, you know, sort of £100,000 a year train drivers and things. That's what they like to do. So they constitutionally, they viscerally detest the idea of cutting welfare, partly because Jeremy Corbyn and the gang will come in and criticise them, but partly because they just genuinely don't want to do it. But the problem is, if they don't do it, our economy is absolutely screwed, and Rachel will have no choice but to give us some pretty big tax hikes come September. So she is between a rock and a hard place, which she's got Keir Starmer saying we need to make cuts. She's got the Corbynistas saying, how could you, you heartless woman? So she is in a socialist quandary.
Well, the job of being Chancellor isn't about being popular. It's about actually making your country prosperous and as many people as possible feel better off. And she's doing woefully at that. The other thing that the Labour Party and any Labour government hates to do is sack anyone, however incompetent they are, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, or indeed tens of thousands of civil servants. So I'm not holding my breath with this plan to axe a load of civil service job. I simply don't believe they will ever actually do it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's all words, all weasel words. And what you can put your bet your house on is by September, more tax rises. And that is going to go down like a cup of cold sick, I'll tell you. Listen, let's move on. We've got another one of these hopeless situations with an immigration tribunal, an idiot judge. This one really takes the biscuit. This is an alcoholic Pakistani paedophile who served a jail sentence, you know, for sexually abusing children, came straight out and attacked an underage teenage girl, having finished his sentence. So the Home Office, bless its little heart, earmarked this guy for deportation. He appealed, citing the European Convention on Human Rights, and the judge overturned the deportation order because he was an alcoholic, and if he went back to Pakistan, where alcohol is illegal, people would look down on him and allegedly treat him badly, and B, and this is the one that certainly tugged at my heartstrings, he wouldn't be able to get treatment for his booze problem. So this guy now stays within us, is in our midst, a danger to our children, because the judge decided he needed booze treatment and might be treated quite badly under the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights. This nonsense has got to stop, hasn't it?
Well, how about C, back where he came from, it might be an awful lot more difficult, or let me put that differently, it would be an awful lot more difficult for him to actually obtain alcohol. So, in fact, to cure his alcoholism, how about sending him to a place where alcoholism is not acceptable and booze isn't readily available? Sounds like the best cure to me.
Have you been to Pakistan? Like most Muslim countries, it's fairly easy to get booze if you want to, so I don't think...
Well, in that case, his excuse, you can't have it always. I mean, his excuse doesn't apply in that case. Either it's really difficult to get alcohol and it's really frowned upon, in that case, well, then poor him, you know, we don't accept that as an excuse. Or it isn't, and in that case, it's not so frowned upon to be drinking.
It's just ridiculous, though, isn't it? You know, this is the ECHR. It's not just the European Convention on Human Rights. It is a combination of that convention and these ludicrous Guardian-reading judges who just want to find against the government every time, and some or other want to be nice to paedophiles and criminals, drug dealers and the like, and let them stay because, you know, hey, one of their sons doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets. This is out of control now, this nonsense, isn't it?
Beyond out of control. I mean, we had fairly recently the case of the woman who joined a terror organisation, a proscribed group in Nigeria, simply so that she couldn't be deported to Nigeria, because then she would be in trouble because she's
I remember that one. Yeah.
every week, I mean, more than once a week, there are these cases, and I can't remember it ever having been this bad, but maybe it's just that we're now, quite rightly, as the media, highlighting these cases. As you say, it's the judges. You know, they do not need to interpret the law in this way that
No,
is.
they don't. They don't. It's there in. Look, the ECHR, we should leave it. But even if we did, these judges would find a way to let these paedophiles and the criminals and drug dealers stay, because that is their natural inclination. They'll always do it. So the real problem we have, yes, leave the ECHR. Then we've got to deal with these judges, because they are a clear and present danger to public safety here in Britain.
I mean, the UK is becoming a global dustbin. That's what it is. It seems that we are now just a kind of place of refuge for a bunch of people who are actually so dreadful that they can't even rely on being treated properly back in their countries of origin, because they've done such terrible things here. And that
That's right.
that is no longer a disqualification for being part of British society. And the taxpayer is being asked each and every time not only to support these people in their endless appeals, which after you try 8 or 9 times, and I haven't even made that up, you know, there are people who they're earmarked for deportation because they are convicted criminals, and they bring 7, 8, 9 attempts to appeal, all on different and ever more creative grounds, all supported by the British taxpayer through our court system. I mean, this is absolutely insane, and it is totally self-harming, and it is an insult to ordinary, hard-working, good citizens of our country, the British people, who time and again this government claims to be on the side of those people. Well, they're not, because the systems that are in place simply seem to be set up to allow anyone to stay, however awful, however non-contributing they are, whatever their violent criminal history. Come one, come all to merry Britain.
That's something we need to do as a matter of urgency. Limit the number of appeals these people are allowed to make. Exactly, because at the moment it's limitless, it's infinite. Legal judgments, Isabel, are rendered pointless if there is limitless recourse to appeal. So you just go, oh God, this one went against us. Appeal. Oh, this one went against it. Appeal. Oh, we lost this one again. Appeal. Yeah, we won this one. They just keep doing it until they win. And in the end, they do. It's mad. And I got one other question to ask you, sort of journalistic question. If I was an editor of a national newspaper, only a matter of time, of course, I would get together with some of my fellow editors and I would launch a case. I would appeal and say, why is it that this Pakistani paedophile, who's been through our legal system, and all these other people, these deportees who managed to stay or get kicked out, why do we grant them the privilege of anonymity? Why do we do that? I mean, that's a privilege that you only give to very special cases. And our system, our legal system, is supposed to be transparent. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Why on earth are we not naming this Pakistani paedophile?
I don't know, has he got children or something? I mean, I've got no...
We're never allowed to name them. We're never allowed... We never get their names, and I don't understand why.
No, I totally agree with you. I can't see any case whatsoever to protect the identity of any convicted criminals unless there is a child protection issue linked to that. I can't see the justification for it. As you say, it's a privilege to have your anonymity protected in any criminal proceedings in which you are either the accused or the convicted one. And you're right. You know, we just shouldn't tolerate it.
We should know who these people are. We should know who they are. I mean, only in very, very exceptional cases do people who go through the legal system get anonymity. And Pakistani paedophiles who rape children, I would suggest maybe we shouldn't afford them that privilege. I don't know. Call me controversial.